Ah, I got a cat on my back. I got a cat on my back.
It's like a monkey.
Wow. What?
It's like having a monkey.
Bully. Wow.
All right, so battery life is 57%.
All right.
All right. So hang on 1 second.
Okay.
All right.
Can you direct the camera down towards you a little bit? It looks like you're sitting like underneath the camera.
Yeah. How's that?
Good.
Yeah? Maybe.
Yes. Excellent.
I know I'm a little set back. You're pretty close. Oh, the cat looks really big behind you.
Yeah. He's enormous, man.
Wow. Now I can't hear myself, which is interesting.
Yeah, I can't hear myself either.
Huh.
That's good. You don't want to hear yourself. You want to hear me. Can I record you?
Yes, I said yes.
But you're not giving me permission. You need to click something that gives me permission.
Oh, I don't see anything. I know I'm recording. It says recording.
Oh,
I don't have anything that says.
it says, please request recording permission from the meeting host.
I think it just means please ask me. I don't
Can
know how
you-
to do that. I am recording though.
All right, forget it. You'll just record it, okay?
Yeah. And then nothing in these long form podcasts are to be. Oh, I see what you did. How'd you do that? You made a background for yourself.
Yeah, that's my cat. Background.
How'd you make a background?
I just took an image off my phone or the internet and put it in the background.
How did you put it? What did you push?
Oh, so you click right where it says stop video. You see in the lower left-hand side, and there's like a little arrow. It says choose virtual background.
Oh, snap.
Oh, shit. See, I can.
See, I know how to do it on. Okay, well, perfect.
Yeah. I can put anything I want.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, there you go. You're in space.
That's
And I'm with Donald Trump.
I have a green screen mirror on my video. All right, so I'm in space now.
All right. So, are we going to start or what?
Yeah. Do we? Should we do a intro song?
Okay. What are we talking about? Talking about the wealth tax on Enrique's podcast. Wealth tax.
We're gonna talk about the wealth tax now. Yeah. All right.
4%.
All right. So our topic right now.
All right, wait. Do you mind if can I just say one thing before we start?
Oh, but should we start and then you say one thing?
Oh, okay, okay.
Wouldn't that be reasonable? All
Well,
right.
no, this has nothing to do with the wealth tax.
Oh, it's just a separate thing. All right.
It's a separate thing entirely. I called
Yeah.
you today a couple times because we were trying to get this thing together earlier, right? You can
Yeah.
tell the people at home this.
Yeah.
And I called and I got your voicemail, which is really bizarre. And I just want to tell the people at home who don't know you and maybe not have ever called your private phone line. There's a weird woman that answers the phone in a very kind of like business, like almost like aggressive, like you don't know what nationality she is. She's got a little bit of British in there, a little French. And she says something like chemicals, arms, corporate raids, liens, bounties.
She
She
doesn't
goes
say any
through
of that.
a list of
Doesn't
like
say any of
all
that.
these businesses that Enrique's about. And then it finally says, oh, and Enrique's private voicemail as well. We're open 24/7. We're never sleeping. Why are you sleeping? Why are you sleeping? The woman
Well,
starts accusing me of resting
no, she doesn't. That's I appreciate that.
before I'm even getting into your voicemail. This is
Yeah.
outrageous.
No, no. First of all, that's not my private phone. That's my
Oh,
business phone line.
oh shit.
So yeah,
Oh snap.
yeah. I have a private number. One day I'll give it to you.
Are you involved with like corporate raids and chemical deals and arms trades
No,
and
no, no,
bounties?
no,
Okay.
none of
All
those
right.
things. She
All
just
right.
says, "Hi, you've reached IRMA Corporation," and then
It
she
is
says a
funny.
few other things, and it's only about an 11-second voicemail, but
Okay.
I appreciate the creativity.
But she does say we're open 24/7. We never sleep.
She does say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
she doesn't say we never sleep. She just says we're open
Yeah. Okay.
24/7. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because you know it's a world, it's a global thing. So how are you going to figure out what time to be up?
Exactly. Right. If you're in China.
It's daytime.
So tell me, man, what brings us here today?
Well, I think that we're going to talk about the wealth tax.
Well, you want to talk about the wealth tax?
Yeah, and I think, well, I mean that's what your expertise is, so that's why we're going to talk about that.
My expertise. Well, I think first of all, it's a weird time to talk about it with coronavirus wiping out the economy of what there's going to be like, what, 40 million people unemployed. I don't know if it's the best time to talk about a wealth tax.
Well, if there was a wealth tax imposed, the wealth tax would be happening. That's a great point. The wealth tax would be happening right now during
Right.
a pandemic. It would be
Right.
happening during good times. It would be happening during bad times. So no matter what, once you impose it, so this is actually a really good time to talk about it because it's like, let's imagine there's a wealth tax right now.
Right.
And see how it plays out, even in the best cases, in the best possible scenarios. So one of the things I wanted to ask you
Talk to me.
is how would someone, I guess we have to invent an example, like somebody's got $3 billion in assets.
Okay.
Okay? And then
All right.
we'll take it a couple steps because I want to learn your system and I want to understand how something like that would be implemented and it would still hold up in our time. So somebody has $4 billion worth of assets.
Why don't we take this guy who's looking up into, his name is Frederick Smith. He's the CEO and he started up a little company called FedEx.
Okay.
He's worth about 3-4 billion.
Okay. Yeah, the only problem, I'd rather deal with hypotheticals only because I haven't done the research on that particular individual.
Okay.
So I want to be lost. I
Okay.
can't know every single person's business. So if we start with an hypothetical, someone has $3 billion net worth. Let's say it's in 6 different companies, 6 different
Right.
publicly traded companies. I would imagine or I mean, it doesn't really matter whether it's in 6 or it's in 1, but let's just say he's got 6 companies, and he makes, let's say, $500,000 a year income, and now there's a wealth tax. So you know what? Let's just use 1 billion because we can do the math easier. 1 billion would be
Okay.
a $40 million,
All right.
$40 million
So-
tax. So
All right.
my first question to you is, where would this individual get this money?
Okay. The first thing I think we should kind of talk about is how much exactly is a billion? Because I think people don't realize, and this is a great example that I've heard. If you talk about a million seconds, you're talking about a period of days. If you talk about a billion seconds of time, you're talking about decades. Decades. All right. So the difference between a million, 11 days worth of seconds, or 12 days, or whatever, 20 days, and a billion seconds, which is decades of time, is enormous. So so when somebody has in their possession $1 billion worth of assets, whether it be, like you say, a piece of art, or 100,000 shares of Amazon, or whatever it is, that's a staggering amount of money. I
But
mean,
that's a
it's
subjective thing. The only reason I wasn't really looking to explain that, because that's a subjective. It's a staggering amount of money.
no,
That's
no.
that's a
The difference
quality.
between a million and a billion is not subjective. It's a difference between a few days and 30 years or
It's
40
it's
years.
it's not subjective, the difference between a million and a billion, but is subjective is that it's staggering. It might be staggering to some, and it might not be staggering to others. I don't know that I would. I don't know that I would label something as staggering. I think that it would be fair to say, hey, to me, that's staggering. That would be an accurate statement if you say that about yourself. But to generalize something
Okay.
like that, I
All
think
right.
is
So
unfair.
maybe it's not staggering to many people,
Just saying it's
but to
staggering to
me,
you, right?
it was staggering to me, the amount of money these people have, especially considering that the average US citizen in this country, right,
Mhm.
has a couple of $1,000 in their bank account. That's the median average for a bank account in the United States,
Right.
is $4,000.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about a guy that has $4 billion
Well, let's go with the 1 billion, because then we
or
can do the
one
math.
billion,
Yeah.
it's the difference between that. I'm going to say it. It's awe-inspiring. It's staggering. It is an incredible difference. A typical human being would never even ever come close to having a
Let's just
billion
stay on
dollars.
the substance, because
Well,
right
okay.
now these are editorials, and I don't know really what we can do with them. But I think people can write.
I'm telling you what an average human being has in their bank account,
I
as
think
opposed to a guy that has
I
$1 billion.
think everybody watching this, all 700,000 people, are clearly aware of how much the average person has compared to some people who have
Oh,
exceptional
okay.
wealth.
I didn't
I
know
don't
that,
think
but
it's
okay.
new. I don't think it's. I don't think
Okay.
it's any kind of revelation to suggest to people that, hey, not everybody has $1 billion. But absolutely. So let's take a look at a guy's got $1 billion worth of assets.
Okay.
It's in 4 different companies, and now it's, his annual income. Let's say it's $500,000, which I think is, reasonably a reasonable assumption. Um, where is this person supposed to get $40 million to pay this tax bill?
Okay. First of all, let me just say this.
We have like 100 things to talk about. I think we got to get through this first question.
Where are they going to get $40 million?
Yes.
They're going to sell or borrow on an asset.
Okay. So let's say they borrow.
Right.
So they borrow $40 million. I'm just going to get my mortgage calculator out,
Okay. Get your calculator out.
and I have to do it on the. Should have been ready. Should have been ready. I knew you were going to
Well,
ask me.
okay. So in the meantime, while you figure this out,
Yeah.
I just want to tell you that if they're going to be taxed $40 million, which is 4% of a billion, that already is at a lower rate than the average human worker. The average American worker pays a payroll tax. They don't have to go and cash in on a Picasso. They already pay close to 45% of their wages towards a tax. So
That's their wages, and this individual, this example,
is
his
not
500.
paying off their wages, right? A billionaire generally makes their money off of, let's say, stocks. They make their money off unearned.
Why don't we just go through this exercise and then just go down the path logically, so we don't skip around?
Okay.
Because otherwise, I think it's going to get confusing.
Okay. I just want to
Um,
get that out there.
so, oh man, I'm trying to get uh, free mortgage calculator right here. All right. Come on. All right. It used to be so easy to find a freaking mortgage calculator. And now you can't.
And, you know,
all right, here we go. Here we go. Mortgage loan amount. All right. 40. One, two, three, one. Yeah, there it is. All right. Annual interest rate. How much of an interest rate? We're going to say he's going to borrow it at 5%.
oh, well, that might be a bit high. I mean,
So what
they're
percentage?
practically giving money away now, right?
Okay. So what do you want to say? 4%?
I'd go even lower.
3%?
All right, let's do 3%.
All right. All right. 3%. Number of months. How long is he going to borrow this money for?
40
years?
million. Okay.
All right. So let's say, let's see, 300, 20 divided by 12, 20 years. Is that 360 times 12 is 360 months, right? Yeah, let's just use that. All right. And yearly sale price. Okay. It's got me doing this part too. I don't know why. All right, let's system monthly privilege more. Okay, calculate. I think it's $300,000 a month.
Okay.
Because this is not.
Okay. Now, do you mind if I just, can I like give you a macro view of what we're talking about
I'd
here?
rather, I prefer a very micro view just because that's going to actually get us somewhere. Because macro, you can do it if you want, but
I mean, we have to talk about how this person, who is this billionaire?
All right, hang on. Hang on one second. I got to get my glasses.
Okay.
Okay, so all right, so you're asking me who this billionaire is, right?
Yeah, let's talk about this billionaire, okay?
Yeah, okay.
First of all, how many people in the United States have $1 billion? Do you know how many?
Let's just say 100.
There's 600 of them.
600, okay.
700. Okay. So we're talking about 600 or 700 people. That's why it's so crazy to be talking about a wealth tax when there's 40 million unemployed.
All right, $168,000 a month. Okay.
Okay, so they're gonna have to pay $168,000 a month just in interest, right?
Interest in print, just the whole thing. That's how the
Oh,
monthly
okay.
pages. That's including taxes, insurance, um, all over everything. And he's going to be paying over that time period $20 million.
Okay.
All right.
So, okay. So basically, just remember that there's the United States, it's not an even playing field. The tax system is not created equal. All right. So you've got people being taxed at different rates. And I
Yeah, we
know
have a
you,
progressive tax system. Exactly.
well, the only problem is, though, for the people at the very top, you can do a lot of things with your money to prevent having to pay taxes. First of all, when you sell a stock, what's the tax on that stock?
On the
It can be as
profit?
little as zero if you keep it for a long, long time. If
No,
you do it,
it depends on what the capital gains are scheduled at the time of the sale. So every administration changes. It's anywhere between 15 and 35%.
all right, right now it's what, 20%?
I believe so. I don't
Yeah,
know
it's
the exact.
20%.
Yeah.
So when a billionaire sells their stock to get money, let's say for taxes, right?
Yeah.
They are paying generally 20%, and they're not paying Social Security and the extra 7%
Well,
for.
same thing with a millionaire and same thing with a guy with $1,000. Everybody's paying the exact same amount, 20%.
But guys with $1,000 can't afford to tie up their money in the stock market. They need that money for
Or somebody
food.
with a few 100,000.
Okay, if you start getting up there, sure, that means the money becomes much more. You can do without it. You can leave it in the stock market. I can't leave money in the stock market. I got to buy milk for my son. Like I've got things I've got to do with my money, right? But okay, so anyway, so they pay 20% on that.
Well, you've
Now, how
invested it
much?
in your businesses because you're a businessman. So
I,
you
I,
have
I, I
you have your money in your businesses, and then but anyway, all right. So go
so
on.
okay,
But
are you
I
follow?
hopefully we stay on topic because right now you're
But
talking
this
about
is the
something
topic.
I
They
don't.
are paying 20% on the stocks that they sell.
Just like everybody else. Yes.
Right. But we, meaning me and the people in my neighborhood here in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
don't have a lot of money tied up in the stock market.
But that's something that's so therefore you don't have to pay any money on your capital gains because you're
Look,
not even involved in that.
I'll give you
So
a little personal
they have to
anecdote.
pay. They have to
I
pay
used to work
20%.
for I used to work for a company called the Roundabout Theater, right? Every week we'd get our paycheck. You could hear a pin drop in the room. Our boss would come around and hand us our little white envelopes, and everybody would tear open their checks. And the first gasp out of everyone's mouth was, "Oh, they're taking 50% of my money."
Yeah. Same thing.
50%.
Yeah.
It's 40% and plus 7.25. Let's say 47 and
They're
three
very high
quarters
taxes.
percent.
But okay.
So wait, so a billionaire does not get that little. They get the, oh, I only paid 20% on this, not 50%.
No, he doesn't. He actually has to pay the same. He has to pay even higher tax because when he gets his paycheck, remember in the example, he's getting $500,000 a year. So when he gets his paycheck, 50% is taken out of there. It's even more.
Dude,
So
I got a little news flash for you.
yeah.
They generally don't get paychecks. Look at Jeff Bezos. He makes like $80,000 a year.
He does get a paycheck. He makes $82,000 a year. He did that for 10 straight years.
Yeah, but that's not where
And
he makes his money. He's the
he
richest
sold
man in the
he
world,
sold
not because of his 80,000 a year.
no, he didn't sell any stock for 10 years.
That's fine. I'm saying when he
He
does
lived
sell
off
stock,
of,
he pays 20%, right?
just like everybody else, right?
Right, but no, pay people who get payroll, they pay nearly 50%. So there's a difference there. It has to be said, Enrique. I'm sorry, but that's a
When
big difference.
capital gains tax is definitely taxed much different than employee taxes because you
Right.
have to incentivize people to take the risk. When you invest in the stock market, you have a greater odds of losing money than making money. So you have to be incentivized in order to go and support American businesses and support American jobs and support American industry. So when you take your hard-earned money and invest it that way, just like Jeff Bezos did, he took the very little money he had and then he invested in the stock market. You have more money today than he had when he started.
That's not true. I told you already. He borrowed from his family to the tune of millions, friends and
I,
family.
I know, but what I mean is his personal assets were less than yours. So he borrowed money the same way when you started your company, you borrow from friends and family. You borrow from your wife's father money, and you also borrow from your friends, your friend Elon. And you did the exact same thing. When I started my business, I started my first company without any funding from anyone. So all I had was $800. And then I had to grow $800 into something. So that was the full funding from my first company, which is still in business now, which is when you call my office, you get that voicemail with all that stuff going on. That's the company that I started for $800 that does $160 million a year in business.
Enrique, that's fine and great, but I'm talking about the average U.S. citizen. Remember that guy I spoke about when we first started? The guy with 4,000 in his bank account?
No, I
He doesn't
understand.
have the kind of money to blow on buying stocks or starting companies. As a matter of fact, his
Well,
life is based around the basic human needs like shelter,
no,
food, heat,
Ben, I'm fully
clothing.
aware of that. I just want to know where this is going. I just said, because
I'm telling you where it's going.
right, but I try.
600 people
So wait, one second. Wait 1 second.
are billionaires,
No, I
and they
understand.
pay much less taxes than we do already.
I know, but and I really wanted to try to have this conversation without bringing my own personal information into it, because that's, I'm trying to avoid that.
You can do whatever you want.
But people with no money with less money than those people start multi-billion-dollar companies all the time. People like Howard Schultz, for example, he started
But
with
not really, because there's only 600 billionaires.
I understand, and
I
that's
wouldn't say
how.
all the time. I mean,
No, what I mean is it's very difficult to build a company.
yeah,
And
it is very difficult.
most of the people that have built these businesses, they built these companies and their chances of success were like 0.0001% chance of success. And they risked all their money instead of, and they took their $400 a week paychecks. And what they did was they just parsed out like $20 a week and they saved it, or whatever they did. Everybody does different things. They borrowed from friends, they borrowed from family. They did whatever they could in order to get enough money to develop a seed capital. And then they
Well,
went ahead and they invested, and then they were bizarrely able to succeed, because I know that when I started my company, I thought that there was almost no chance I'd succeed. And
I'm not going to shed a tear for them. I mean, look, what I'm concerned about is the millions of people who work hard every day and can't get ahead because the system is rigged. This is another element of this whole thing, because when a billionaire gets to that level of money and power, they start affecting the world. They start affecting the judicial system, the political system, the economic system. And right now, everything is tilted in the favor of the very rich.
so let me ask you this, since you're going to refuse to answer any of my questions,
No,
or how?
ask me a question. You haven't asked
Yeah, I
me
did.
one.
I said, how is this billionaire
Yeah.
going to pay $40 million a year? We're going through this
very
exercise.
easily.
Yeah, so let's
Very
go
easily.
through it. How is he going to do it? So your first thing is, hey, he'll borrow $40 million from the bank.
If he has to, if that's the only, are you telling me he can't sell shares of his stock?
Well, here's what happens. If you start selling shares of the stock in order to pay this wealth tax, then who's going to buy those shares? The stock,
That's
the
what
stock
has
starts
to.
going down. So then what
Okay,
happens
but
is,
that's what has to happen. I'm not worried about it.
well, I'm very worried about it. And I think that you should be worried about it, because as the stock goes down, then that creates a liquidity problem. Then if there is a
I'm
4%,
sorry. I don't
wait,
understand what that means.
all right, so I'm trying to explain it. So let's just
Okay.
concentrate on the stuff that, first of all, if somebody borrows $40 million from a bank, the first thing that the bank does is they say, okay, let me see your income. And then he says, well, my income is only $500,000 a year. And I'm picking a large number, $500,000 a year. And so then the banker says, well, how on earth are you going to pay this back if your monthly bill is $163,000 a month? That means that your after tax income after a year is going to be about on 500,000, somewhere around $215,000. So you're going to make it through the first month. How are you going to pay the second month? And you're just taking a 20-year loan. How are you possibly going to pay the second month when you don't even have any more income? So that right there becomes a problem. And then we have to think about the next year something's going to happen. And then the next year he's got to borrow another $40 million. Although by then, because of this situation, his net worth will probably be less. So 4% will probably be only, let's say, $34 million. And every year, as his net worth decreases, his tax bill is going to be less. His 4% tax bill is going to be less because the value of the company is going to be less. Therefore, his net worth is going to be less, his or hers. I'm not just choosing that it's going to be a male. So what
I'm having difficulty like feeling sad for this.
No, you don't.
Individual.
It's not about feeling. It's not really about feeling sad.
Well, how should I feel about this person that's struggling to pay their $40 million tax bill when they have $1 billion in assets? Well, as I said, is astronomically different.
No, I understand. But what we're trying to do is figure out how, in a practical world, someone is actually going to be able to pay this bill. But so what I'm looking for is what I'm saying how does somebody do it?
All right, I'll tell you. What doesn't compute to me is if I have to pay 50% of my income.
So does he. Everybody has to pay.
Hold on. And someone like we just said, Bezos has a salary of $80,000, but he's going to be the first, let's say, trillionaire owning $1 trillion worth of Amazon stock.
Right.
He will sell that stock at 20%. So if he has to get another 5% on that for wealth tax, or another 6%, or even 7%, he's still at 26, 27, 28. And I'm at 50.
Right, but but here's the thing. You're talking about, let's just go back to liquidity issues. So when somebody has to, let's say, obviously the bank is going to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to loan you this money because you have no way to pay it back. And then maybe they'll say, well, how much money are you making off of dividends, off of your stock? And then he says, well, I make zero income from that. And he says, so you make zero income from dividends, and you have no income to support this loan. What a banker's going to say is, come back when you want to borrow $40 million in order to build a business and hire people and create jobs. But right now, if you're just going to go and borrow money just to pay a tax bill, you come to the wrong place.
Okay.
All right.
So maybe they have to sell a yacht or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Let's assume he doesn't have a yacht. Okay.
All right. Well, generally, there are statistics of how billionaires keep their money.
But hold on a second.
We don't have to create this person that just has a one Picasso on the wall, you know. So
well, let's look at someone like Elon Musk, for example. Okay. Elon Musk, he doesn't have any yachts to sell. He doesn't have any. He's selling selling 3 houses now, so he's just going to rent
a couple houses.
Yeah, but that's $2 million per house. So he sells 3 houses. That's only $6 million. That's not going to get him anywhere. And when he sells those houses, what he's going to do is he's going to buy his own stock. That's what he's going to do. He's going to invest in his own stock. So we can just use his example because I think his is a pretty common example. I know that personally, I put every penny I have back into my company. Okay. So I don't have any real thing, anything left over. Right now we're in a real difficult situation. So things are really difficult. And then personally, people like me have to take on inordinate amounts of debt that we don't know how on earth we're going to pay it back. But anyway, this is a podcast, so it's not a therapy session. So let's just take a look at how generally the people who have $1 billion in assets that I'm aware of operate about the same way. They're putting their assets into their business and growing it. That's why Jeff Bezos didn't sell any stock for over a decade. And, you know, he drove the same Honda, even though he was worth $11 billion, because he understands the cost and consequence of selling even a single share of your stock. It's a pretty big deal. So let's just look at the reality. Can we both agree?
40 million people are unemployed. If it's a big deal that Jeff Bezos sells a share of his stock and the stock market goes down, or the shares of Amazon go down 5% and stay there for a couple months before recovering, that's less of a big deal than
but you're not right. But let's just stay on point, so we
10
can
million
actually
people unemployed.
No, I understand, but we're talking about how a billionaire is supposed to pay for this wealth tax. We're not really. I think that we shouldn't conflate that with unemployment and everything else. I think that they're very different subjects, and I'm happy to talk about those other things. But the very simple information.
Hold on. I have to respond to that.
It's impossible for me to make a connection between those things.
But you have to, because there is a connection. Okay, look.
I'm saying
let's break it on down.
What I want to do is what I'd like to do is make it real simple and answer at least one question. That's all I want to do first. I want to answer one question.
It's hard to answer a question about a hypothetical billionaire and what they're going to sell and what they have to go through.
It's not. Let's just.
I don't know what assets that billionaire has.
Most of them don't necessarily. They got a house and they got a fucking
They got
car.
Stock.
Yeah,
most of them got stock. So they got to sell their stock.
So when you sell your stock,
right?
All right. So if there was a wealth tax, for example,
right?
Okay. The first thing I would do upon recognizing that there was going to be a wealth tax is I would immediately sell every stock I had.
Right.
It's the very first thing that I would do.
Okay.
All right. And so now I wouldn't be able to invest in American companies. So then what I'd have to do is I'd have to go and look to invest in foreign companies. I'm certainly not going to invest in America when there's a wealth tax. Why am I not going to invest in America? Number one, because I know that the people who own the most shares of stock are going to have to sell that stock. And that forces the price to go down. Now, and then because you have a liquidity problem. So then as the price of the stock goes down, well, you then have to start letting people go. You have to start firing and trimming your workforce, because that's where the money comes from in order to pay for your overhead. It's where you are able to hire employees to work at the company. And it's where you're able to allocate funds in order to do research and development, to buy equipment, to do all of those things. So you're selling the stock, the price of the stock is going down, you have a liquidity problem, and now you have to stop investing. So not only do the people stop investing in these American companies, but then the company itself can no longer invest, because the whole point of going public is to get that cash. So this way you can go and you can buy things and you can hire people. So as a CEO, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, I have to now sell $40 million worth of stock, because obviously no bank is going to loan me $40 million just to pay a tax bill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell $40 million worth of stock. And then if a bank did let me borrow the money, I'd have $163,000 a month to pay. So 163, that's, I don't know, $2 million a year. 163,000. Yeah, it's about $2 million a year. Right? Am I getting that number right?
I think so.
160, right. And there's no way that I'm going to be able to do that. But after 1 year, remember, now I have to go and borrow another 40 million, or maybe it's only 35 million the next year. So now the next year, I'm going to have to pay, let's say, $3.5 million that year in a wealth tax. And then the year after that, it's going to be $4.5 million. Now my net worth is coming down, and so is the net worth of every investor in the company. But the thing is
other millionaires.
or other regular people too. Other people that there are people that invest in the stock market that make $200,000 a year. There are people that invest in the
Two
stock
hundred
market.
thousand dollars a year is a lot of money.
I understand. There are people that invest in the stock market that make $100,000 a year. Bartenders.
100,000 is a lot of money.
I understand, but there's people who invest in the stock market with $100,000 a year. After their taxes and everything, they struggle to pay their rent. It's not exactly
right. That's
so.
what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So there are people that make $1 million a year, and after their taxes, they struggle to pay their rent. You know, it's not that easy, because remember, if you're paying a much bigger rent, then you gotta, you have to have money for it. But in any case, if you were able to borrow money, it wouldn't last long, because you'd have to actually do two things. You'd have to sell stock just to be able to pay the bank now. So either way, no matter what, you've got a liquidity problem. And now what you're doing is you're taking people who are making $100,000 a year, and they're becoming unemployed because your stock price has now fallen down, and now you can't pay them anymore. So you have to trim your workforce. So you're creating more unemployment as you're going. Now, if you want to tax people's income,
there are companies that trim their workforce during many different kinds of conditions.
Exactly my point. But
even very positive conditions like tax cuts trim workforce. They do that too.
No, tax cuts generally increase workforce.
Not all the time, though. A lot of these big companies were criticized because they hit some big time layoffs right after the Trump tax cuts.
Yeah, but most of the time, the idea is you actually increase your employment, your expenditures.
Most of the time. Sure.
Yeah, so obviously nothing always works every single time in every single situation.
All I'm saying, in some situations,
but what you're talking about is having a wealth tax that's constant, no matter what it is that's going on. Good times, bad times, all the times. So
yes, wealth tax, and just to let you know,
but
wealth tax is highly supported by the public.
Oh no!
Even
listen,
Republicans. Now this is true.
No,
Republicans.
Listen. I'm aware that some people support it. I'm saying
majority of people, not just
majority. I definitely do not support it.
Okay, I understand that.
Yeah, I think it would be.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out with you, because you're an expert in this area, is how people would pay for it. No, I'm just saying, how on earth is somebody going to pay for this wealth tax? Is all I'm trying to get through right now. So we've already established they'd have to sell even if
they have to sell stock. The stock's going to go down a little bit.
It's not not a little bit, a lot.
Oh, how much is a stock going to go down if let's say Jeff Bezos has to sell enough to pay for 4% on his wealth? So
that would probably immediately result in about a 15% reduction immediately in the stock price.
And how much is the stock up this year?
It's up significantly.
Okay, so is that, in the big scheme of things, is it a big deal?
If it's a very big deal, because not only is
if it's up 65% for the year, which it probably is even more than that, right?
No, it's up I don't know, 15%.
All right, so it would be a correction back down to zero.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly. But then we have other considerations. It's Jeff Bezos selling the stock, and then it's a bunch of other people as well, and in order to do this. So the immediate effect would be 15%. Over time, every year, the stock would be worth less, because you'd have this liquidity problem.
That may not be true, though, because
it's 100%
generally
true. I'll tell you why it's
the 100%. Performance of Amazon stock has been unrelentingly positive over the last 20 years.
It's been very positive. However, that's because it hasn't
6,000%, 10,000%, 20,000%. But this is crazy. You know, you're talking about like.
But there hasn't been a wealth tax. As soon as there's a wealth tax, that's over.
Well, okay. Now this is interesting. There hasn't been a wealth tax.
Yeah.
Actually, the tax system in this country has changed dramatically, and this is something we've talked about in the past, you and I.
Yeah.
In the last 50, 60 years, the taxes have shifted dramatically lower for the rich in
Again,
terms
this
of
doesn't have
personal.
anything to do with what we're talking about
Yes,
right
it
now.
does. We're
It
talking
doesn't.
about taxing the wealthy.
I'm not able to figure out how there's a connection between what you're saying and how somebody's going to pay for the wealth tax. I think that you're starting a different conversation. What I'm trying
No,
to
this
do
is
is
not a different conversation to say that in the 50s and 60s, the tax rate for the wealthiest people was up in the 60s and 70%, and
but there
now it's
wasn't a
down
wealth tax
to.
though. But there wasn't. There were in the 50s and 60s. There was no wealth tax.
What I'm saying is the percentage of their income or revenue that
Yeah,
they paid was much, much higher in the past, and it's been
exactly.
very good lately for them.
Well,
So
no,
this,
that's how a lot of people got going, because what happened was during those times you had to pay like 80% tax on your income. So what the wealthy did was
right,
they started to
right.
lower their income, and then they just started accumulating their assets, and their shares in their companies, and then they would take their shares in their companies and they would buy other companies with those shares and then create more wealth. So during that time was an incredible time for the extremely wealthy to get extremely, extremely, extremely wealthy. That was the best thing ever. And that model, holds true. Um,
And
raising the
also, the
income.
United States had money to pay for infrastructure and all the
Yeah,
things that make
if
America
you
so
want to,
great and
right.
worthwhile to invest in, right?
Listen, if you raise the income tax, then you can raise the income tax for the wealthy. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing to do, but I'm not going to say it's a terrible thing to do. You can raise the income tax. We're talking about a wealth tax, though. That's a
Yeah,
very
that's
different thing, because a wealthy person, all they have to do is say, you know what, they're raising the income tax. So instead of taking $500,000 a year, I'm only going to take $300,000 a
but
year.
they do that anyway, dude. As a matter
Exactly.
of fact, they use every conceivable trick in the book to
I
not pay
understand.
taxes.
I understand that.
Yeah.
So the
As a
so
matter of
the
fact, this hypothetical billionaire might have 40 million in an offshore account somewhere, right?
no,
Why not?
because that's not because we're trying to stay on reality.
But the
Okay.
reality is there's trillions of dollars in offshore accounts.
He
It's
might have
proven.
he might have $40 million in an
Yeah.
offshore account.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. And then
Okay,
he's
so use
obviously
that.
no, he's obviously not going to use that. That's safely positioned in an offshore account, secure, away from danger. So he's going to
And
leave
away
that there.
from the economy.
But remember, the wealth tax has to come every year. So if he's got $40 million, what's he going to do next year? And the year after that, and the year after that. Pretty soon he's paying $10, $20 million a year in a wealth tax over time. And that's it. But
Some
basically, it
some
wouldn't
some of
even,
these guys can make $40 million in a day.
I don't think so.
Oh yeah.
In their wealth, yes, but not in money
Yes.
in the bank.
No, no,
Sure.
no. In their wealth. Yeah.
Exactly. But that
I'm
doesn't,
sure
you can't go to the
like for
super,
example,
you can't. So anyway, so the thing is, we're trying to figure out
you
the
can't
whole
go to the
point of this
supermarket
conversation.
on oh, come on, man.
You don't go to the supermarket with your stock. You go to the supermarket with your cash, with your credit card. So what I'm saying is how we're trying to figure out what mechanisms there are for a billionaire to pay the wealth tax. That's all we're doing right
All
now.
right. So here are some ideas.
Okay. Give me first one and let me respond to it.
All right. I just hit you with one. Take out some money off on your offshore accounts.
Okay, but that's ridiculous, because you're assuming that somebody's got an offshore account. If they do have an offshore account, they probably only have a certain amount in there. It's not going to be enough for every year to pay for a wealth tax. So let's assume for a
Could
minute.
be.
So let's assume a person doesn't have offshore accounts.
Oh, okay.
All right.
But you know there's a lot of money in offshore accounts,
Oh
right?
yeah, but we're trying to create a way that if a wealth tax is imposed, the wealth tax is for everybody, whether they have offshore accounts or don't have offshore accounts. So we have to create laws that are universal for everybody who meets a particular net worth uh, standard.
Right.
So
Gotcha.
if you have $1 billion and now the
Yeah.
wealth tax is 4%, the question is, how are they going to come up with $40 million? And
Okay, so offshore is not a possibility.
no, because
And
not everybody has an offshore account with $40 million. And if they did, that's only 1 year's worth of a wealth tax. What are you going to do with the year after and the year after and the year after?
like I said, you can accumulate that kind of money in one day of stock price, jumping.
But the stock price jumping, all that's going to do is raise the amount of money that your wealth tax is going to be due. So that's no good. As the stock goes up,
but 4% though. Only.
Right. But if your stock goes up, then you're going to have to face liquidity issues, especially when it becomes a law. What these CEOs do, or these founders,
I'd love to see like a poor person at the supermarket say, sorry, man, I can't afford this chicken cutlet. I got liquidity issues.
Yeah, I don't. Well, right now we're not talking about poor people. We're talking about rich people.
Right. Well,
so we should stick to that.
The rich people.
Ben, how are they going to get the $40 million? That's all I want to know first. And then I got six more questions.
You sell a
after
yacht.
That.
You sell a.
What if you don't have a yacht?
You sell 4 houses. You sell. What if they don't have a house? What if they don't have an art? What if they don't have a house? If they don't have a yacht? If they don't have Picasso lying around?
Right.
If they don't have stock, because you're afraid of tanking.
What you're talking about? No, they have stock. That's how they have it. They have stock.
That's how they have.
And then maybe they have
stock.
Right. But the problem is when you have to sell stock, then you create a liquidity problem, and everybody in America will immediately stop investing in the stock market.
Well, that doesn't affect Joe Blow as much as very, very wealthy people.
Well, it does, because Amazon, for example, employs 750,000 people all over the world. As soon as their stock starts to fall because they have a liquidity problem, they have to let those people go. That's how you get unemployment. The stock market goes up, creates liquidity in the marketplace, and then you're able to go and invest in new equipment, new machinery, new employees, new offices, and all of that. That's how it works.
No, that's not how it works, though.
It is exactly how it works.
Not.
It's the only way it works. It's the way that it works 100% of the time.
That's not true. For example, and this is why I wanted to talk about this guy, Frederick Smith, the FedEx owner.
Yeah, but I don't know him. All right, but go ahead. Talk about.
All right. Well, the reason I wanted to talk about him is because the New York Times did a big expose where they said FedEx paid 0 in taxes in 2019, right?
Yeah, 0 in federal taxes.
Just
federal taxes. You have to
federal
be clear.
taxes.
Right, but they paid plenty
of
taxes.
Smith came out.
Wait.
What?
Let's establish reality. Let's establish reality.
Okay.
They didn't pay any federal tax, but they paid billions of dollars in city, state, and local taxes. They also paid billions of dollars in all of the fees for all the airplanes that they have, and all of the the parking fees, the landing fees, and the fuel taxes. So billions of dollars in all of that, and they also paid billions and billions of dollars in payroll taxes. So the company that didn't pay. Wait. Let me finish. So the company
You just did.
No, I didn't. So the company that paid no federal tax.
Right.
Paid billions and billions and billions of taxes in other areas. So go ahead.
Okay. I'm glad you got that out.
Right.
So this company, FedEx, which uses our roads beats down our roads with their trucks and planes.
And they paid all the taxes for those. Right.
Paid 0 in federal taxes.
No federal taxes, but they paid all the city, state, and local taxes that takes care of the roads. The only roads that
federal taxes to also take care of roads.
The roads that the federal taxes take care of are the interstates.
That's right. So don't forget about them.
Right.
Okay.
That's all.
Now, after Frederick Smith went on a rampage saying, "Thank you, Trump." He actually helped write the tax code for the businesses that got this tremendous corporate tax cut. He said, "Thank you, Mr. Trump. This is going to spur us on to reinvest in business and making, and guess what?
Go ahead.
That money was not reinvested. It was reinvested in stock buybacks.
Yeah, that's reinvesting.
Enrich their own shareholders. That's what it was
but it's,
invested in.
you know, I understand, but that's thousands and thousands and thousands of shareholders that were enriched. Some of these
No,
people are people like you and people like your employees
they're
and everything else. You know that right now, because Donald Trump, they're under the Trump administration, buying and selling stock doesn't cost. And I'm not a fan of Donald Trump in any way, so I just make sure I mention that a couple times. Um, the to buy and sell stock is now free, costs nothing. Back in the 80s, it would cost like $350 to buy shares of stock and then another $350 to sell them. And then in the 2000s, I think, 2005, 2006, the brokerage companies were very competitive. And then the price of buying a stock went from 350 to 200 to 100 to 80 and all the way down to like 495. And the Schwab organization, Charles Schwab, was the leader in that movement. So buying a stock then went all the way down to cost $4.95, and then selling stocks went down to $4.95. Then in the last 2 years, actually the last just since January 1st, I think, of 2020, the price went from $4.95 to buy stock and sell it down to zero to buy and sell stock. So everyone now, no matter how little income, I mean, I've got service workers and people who are making, well, I don't have any employees that make minimum wage necessarily, but that I can, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, bartenders, because I have some restaurants, they make minimum wage, but a lot of these people are also making $140,000 a year. And some of them are. So wait, so wait.
If I just get back one more second to the FedEx thing, I just want to say, reveal like a little bit of hypocrisy.
Hold on.
This has got to be said.
No, because I'm trying to say something. We shouldn't step on each other because I'm trying to really make sure that this is clear. There is no these people are able to buy stock now, and they've been able to buy stock for a very long time.
A lot of people can't. They don't have that kind of money.
They actually, a lot of people just they also choose not to do that. Everybody can make choices, all right. And I'll stay away from my own personal examples because I really need to be disciplined about that. But people,
do you mind if I respond to one thing earlier?
No, because I'm not finished. I want you to listen. It's not a battle at who gets more airtime.
No, but this is important because it's something that exactly has to do with what
I'm trying. I just want to make this point. People, even if you make $18,000 a year, you can buy stock. You can invest in American companies and then reap the benefits.
Okay.
You're probably going to lose your money because investing in the stock market is extremely risky. And most people lose money in the stock market. Now, okay. So
the average person with 4,000 in the bank, you could take 1,000 out and invest in the stock market, right?
No, what you do is you take $200 out and invest in the stock market, and then next month you take another 200, and then the next month you take another 200, and slowly but surely you build up a portfolio of various different.
Yeah, I agree with you. And there are apps now that make it easy to do that. They got the apps now that take immediate, like a few.
So all kinds of, exactly. You can allocate all of those things, and you can do different things. So the thing
I just want to respond to something before I forget, because this seems like something I just can't wrap my head around.
Yeah.
So we're talking about this billionaire who's got to sell stock, and you don't like that idea because it's going to.
I got to turn on a light. Wait 1 second. Sorry, I have to turn on a light. Okay.
So on one hand,
holy shit! Why now you're coming out of the speakers? All right, go ahead.
On one hand, you got this so-called billionaire, this hypothetical billionaire, who you don't like the idea of him selling shares of the company, let's say he owns, because it tanks the stock price, and you don't want that stock price to go down.
Well, it hurts liquidity, and it hurts
Right.
jobs, and it hurts.
But on the other hand, you got this company FedEx who got a massive tax cut down to zero federal taxes, and they spent all that money to buy back their own shares, thereby making their own shareholders rich and boosting their stock price, boosting up many percentage points, right? Because that's what happens when you buy stock, right?
Yeah.
And you're not upset about that.
I'm not. It's not that I'm not upset or I'm upset or not upset. What I'm trying to do is figure out how a billionaire is going to pay his 4% tax. I'm trying to get through that. And
So
I'm
selling shares, no. Buybacks from tax cuts, yes. To me, that's a disconnect.
I understand, but I think
Yeah,
that
that's a disconnect.
and I think that it's
And that's what's exacerbating the income inequality, which is the big elephant in the room that we're dancing around, that we're not talking about.
it's not really income inequality. It's more wealth inequality.
Or wealth inequality, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
It's lack of health care, it's student debt, it's the depression that comes from having to owe a ton of money. It's common sense how this system is not working for people. And instead of talking about the 600, hello, hello.
Well, what we're trying to do.
Wait, you didn't even, did you hear what I said?
I heard everything.
Okay.
You're talking,
Instead of talking about the 600 people and how they're going to raise up their 40 million, which I could give a shit about.
But that's
I
the
wanna
only part. That's the whole point of this podcast is to talk about that.
No, what I want to talk, well, look,
The
in
whole
other
entire
words,
point of this
I'm not going
subject
to cry about a billionaire trying to get $40 million, which is like talking about somebody that has $1,000 worrying about where they're going to get $40.
Well, yeah, but that
It's like,
person, but that person with
come on.
those people that you're talking about, the poor and the struggling, are going to be struggling even more when they don't have a job.
Well, hold on. I think this coronavirus, this pandemic has proven that the so-called job creators aren't shit without the millions of people that are the actual job creators. We are the ones that create the jobs. The money flows from us. The money flows from the neighborhoods.
But when you say
stores.
we, you're talking about the business leader, the captain of industry.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Captain of industry. Look, I'll tell you something.
You're a bar
I was a
owner.
telemarketer. I was a telemarketer for 10 years. And like I said, whenever I got that weekly paycheck, 50% was taken out in taxes. The whole room went, and now to hear somebody fight for 4% when they, in actuality, they pay 20%. Is outrageous to me. Yeah, I'm not going to cry about those people.
I'm not asking you to cry. What I'm trying to do is trying to explain how all those people who have jobs at minimum wage or better than minimum wage will have no jobs at all when you have a liquidity crisis. The whole entire situation that happened in 2008 was a liquidity problem. Okay. So there was a capitulation and everybody started selling their stock. When everybody started selling their stock, it created a visceral issue with people being able to maintain jobs. The government had to come in and then bail out companies so then people would not lose their jobs. Right now, we have a problem, and it's definitely another type of liquidity problem. And I think, albeit a bit worse, because in 2008 we identified exactly what was going on, we understood it, and then we were able to fix that extremely quickly. When it comes to what we have going on right now, you've got people without jobs. I know that, and the United States government just gave out a $3 trillion stimulus package, which is more than every other country in the world combined, which is definitely interesting to note. The terms of that stimulus were very conservative. They're only giving people money for 18 months or something, and it's a low interest rate. So they're helping people, but they're also putting them into debt. How are you? Did you get any stimulus?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And I'm still waiting on guidance from my accountant as to whether or not I can use it. I haven't used a penny of it. I kept it in a separate account.
Right.
And I'm waiting to figure out when I can reopen these restaurants and bars, because right now I cannot. So
Yeah.
sitting on money for payroll when I can't open is absolutely absurd, as you know. It
Yeah.
makes no sense. And spending that money is dangerous, like you said, because it will
Yeah.
eventually come back to bite you in the
I
ass.
expect to give almost, I don't know, almost 100% of it back. I'm just going to let that money sit in the bank account and then just give it back. And a lot of money,
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, I didn't even send back the paperwork. So I
Right.
got approved for certain amounts of money, and then they said just sign this, and then we'll make the deposit. And I didn't even do that for a lot of different avenues. But anyway, let's just get back. It's not about feeling bad or crying or anything like that. Just trying to figure out how a wealth tax would work. And, because basically what you're describing is the government basically just confiscating your assets, just taking your stuff away from you. So if you've got a yacht, then they're taking the yacht away.
Look,
But don't,
I'll use this as an
wait,
example.
no. Let's just, but don't, I want you to try to listen to this because I obviously want to change your mind, but I want to change your mind by implanting information that hopefully you say, oh wow, yeah, that doesn't. You're right. That doesn't
Okay,
make sense.
so
So
here's your
let's take
shot. I'm all
the
ears.
all
Implant
right,
this information,
right.
and then I want a shot.
Let's talk about the $50 million yacht.
Okay.
Okay, if you have a situation where because you care about the working man, right?
The working man.
Yeah, the working man.
Well, that's
So
what I am. I mean,
well, you're not. You're an elite CEO of a company. You're not a working man. You act like you pretend to be, but you're actually an elite CEO of a corporation, and you own multiple businesses. So
Enrique, listen to me very carefully. That is
I,
not
I'm not
true.
suggesting you're successful at those things, but
I
you are
am.
those things. Just because you may not be successful at them has nothing to do with it.
Enrique, listen, stop it. You're becoming a little bit,
I'm trying to.
testy.
I'm
Just,
not.
just, li- just listen to me for a second. You do
Okay.
the listening for a minute.
I can't even get a word in.
I worked as a telemarketer for 10 straight years.
That's your fault. You shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that, and then you
a,
wouldn't be able to come on this show and talk about it.
a
Why didn't you work
job,
on Wall Street instead?
a job where people would sit down and 5 minutes later go, where the fuck do I get out of this place? They couldn't even take 5 minutes of it. So don't tell me that I'm not a working person. I am. I'm
You
part of the working
were. You
class.
used to be, but
No, I
why?
am.
Oh, so let me ask you a question. And all of these things that you're bringing up are distractions from taking me off the point. But
Well, you just started attacking me.
no, there's no attack. I'm saying that you are a business owner. You're a CEO. So I'm not. That's not an attack. That's an ultimate compliment. You're not a working man. You are a CEO. You used to work as a telemarketer for minimum wage. But I
You
also
put it a
ask you.
different way before.
No. It's
You said
whenever
you
I.
pretend to be, but
Well, because you're not being. It's just it doesn't add up. You're the owner of a business, okay? You're the owner of a business and you have 3 businesses and you're the CEO of
I
all
own
these
3
businesses.
bars. I
Yeah,
started with one bar that was built for $40,000. Like you said, I borrowed the money from
friends and
Elon.
family,
We
just like
we
Jeff Bezos.
we opened a second bar on that
Borrowed,
income.
right.
Then we borrowed money from a bank to open a third bar, and that's as simple as that.
And
There's
it's as simple as exactly how everybody becomes a billionaire. It's the same road.
no.
Same
Now
exact
hold
road.
on.
So wait,
There's exploitation in that equation.
all right.
There's no exploitation in my equation.
Really, you have.
Yeah, really.
Okay. I'm a bar owner as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me break it down for you. I exploit people left and right in the bar business, not in any
Oh,
other business, only in the
okay.
bar business. And I'll tell you how I exploit people.
Oh,
I'm paying bartenders only, I think it's $10 an hour. Okay. And then I have the customers are paying their income. I don't
yeah.
even pay their income.
Right.
That's,
I'm in the same boat.
you're doing the same thing. The only thing is that I feel really bad about it.
Well, you shouldn't because they're making 50, 60, 70,
No,
sometimes
they're making
$100 an hour.
$150,000
Yeah.
a year. And I
Yeah.
think,
So don't feel bad about it.
No, but that's got nothing to do with it. But I'm putting their income on the backs of the customers. And that's something that I really feel very, very bad about.
I don't feel bad about it at all. Sometimes the customers give them 100% tips. They love them.
Absolutely. And that
It's their
happens.
choice.
It's their choice. And that happens all the time. But what I would like to see in the restaurant business is a business where somebody gets a salary of $175,000.
Well, they tried that. Remember the no tipping establishments? It didn't work.
It seemed to work pretty good.
No.
When did it not work?
Well, there are several big restaurants that touted that they're going to change their system into a non-tipping.
And they did. The Danny
And
Meyer
they reverted back. As a matter of fact, one major restaurant group, they own Diner, they own what's the other place?
Some didn't revert back and some did. But the point is that some are still doing it. And I think that that's a really good system because it makes the check nice and clear. I'm very much in support. I'd rather pay people $175,000 a year. They know exactly what they're getting, and then they're being treated with respect and dignity.
Well, then you got to raise your prices.
Of course you got to raise your prices. Yeah. And you got to raise your prices every time the minimum wage goes up. You know, those are the only people that get paid minimum wage are the bartenders. And those minimum wage jobs are $150,000 a year.
Wage, so it's a different, it's in a different world.
It's still, I like to call it for what it is. It's still minimum.
They're getting, like you say, supplemented by the customer. So
of course, I think anybody watching this understands how bartending works. Okay, I don't need to explain that.
Yeah, but you're making it seem like a minimum wage. We're paying minimum wage.
What I'm saying is that I am paying minimum wage, and I think it's the only area that I pay minimum wage, and I am paying minimum wage. I'm being upfront about it. I'm not going to pretend.
Of course, no bar owner or restaurant owner in their right minds would pay more than minimum wage when their employees are making $150,000 a year.
It says I'm not going to discuss what people in their right mind would do. I'm just establishing that I pay minimum wage. That's all I'm saying. I'm not talking about people's right mind or wrong mind. That's not up to me to do. That's a different podcast, man. So what I'm saying is these people are doing that, okay? And they're selling alcohol to people, and everybody's having a good time, and that's all fine. But I need to understand. We need to go back to figure out how a person with $1 billion net worth, who has all of their assets in a company, is going to end up paying $40 million a year unless they sell the stock. And if they sell the stock, which is the only way they're going to do it, they're going to create liquidity problems. And then when they create, hold on a minute. I know, but what the liquidity problems mean is a loss of jobs. It means people going hungry. It means people out of work. It means
maybe with that money that they're giving to the government, right? Yeah. They're losing the liquidity in their own company, and they're forced to lay off people. Yeah. Maybe the government gets some tax revenue from them, and they start a jobs program where they hire people to build a bridge, and maybe the trade-off is even.
Okay, so wait a minute. So that's where we're going. That's where I wanted to get to. So then basically you've got everybody, instead of working for private companies, they'll be working for the government.
Maybe they'll hire just as many people as that fictional company laid off.
I understand, but what happens is then everybody's working for the government.
Well, some people work for the government. Yeah, a lot of people work for the government.
I know, but as you start taking and taking away people.
Hey, it's great to work for the government, right? You get good benefits, good pension, you get health care.
There's lots of jobs in the government, and I can't go through the list.
Okay, I know a guy who works for the post office, right?
And he's having a good time?
He's having a great time.
Okay.
He's going to retire early. He's got a huge pension. He can live after 55, 60 years old. He's set.
Right. And he's happy with that. Some people don't want to live like that.
No, I understand.
Some people don't want to work in a post office and then get a pension and retire at 55. That's not good for everybody.
No, it's not good for everybody.
Right. So what I want to try
it's not bad.
Well, it depends on who you ask. I'm not going to judge anybody and qualitatively make some kind of decision on somebody else. I can say,
I'm sorry, I forgot. We don't do that on this podcast.
Well, I'm just saying that for me, I would be pretty unhappy if I had some government job. That would be miserable for me.
Yeah.
if I got a pension and all of that. That would
Hey,
be
a lot of great people were post office workers. You know who was one? Charles Bukowski.
okay. The point is, he was a post office worker, and then he got out of there. Okay, so
Well, he wrote while he was.
congratulations. So congratulations to him. It's not a place that you want to go into and then die there, probably. Although some people do want to do that. I want to be careful that I'm very clear that I'm not disparaging post office workers.
Yeah.
You're doing a valuable job that
Yeah.
provides a valuable service. So what I want to try to explain is, you are interested in the working man, right?
Yes, I am.
All right. So you got a CEO, and now he wants to buy that yacht. Okay.
Right.
So he gets that yacht. All right. And he spends, let's say, 50 million on the yacht.
Right.
Okay. When you buy a yacht, about 92% of what the price of a yacht is labor.
Okay.
So now you've got that yacht.
Yeah.
And now you've just spent $42 million on labor, and people have jobs and high skilled jobs and craftsmen and really good paying jobs. Now, all of a sudden the government says, all right, well, now you got to pay a 4% tax. We got to take that yacht away. So then the guy says, okay, here's the yacht. Okay. Usually when people take something away from you, is because, it's because you're being punished. So then the mindset is, all right, I've just been punished. Now I lost my yacht. So who on earth is going to go and buy another yacht now that they've learned when you have a yacht, they take it away from you, not because you did something wrong, but because that's the way life is.
Yeah.
Okay. So now there's no more yachts being made. So that's hundreds of thousands of people all over the world now out of work. Those are the working men. Those are the people.
Okay,
It's not
a bit of a jump, but
it's actually not of a jump at all. So
really?
it's conspicuous consumption is a driving force in the economy. That's how people go in and make and generate money and have people to hire. It's all about, the more expensive the item, the more people are involved in making it, and the more money is paid all around in order to make those goods and services. You have, Apple products. Okay. You got these phones, and everybody's got an iPhone, or they got a Samsung phone, and they cost a certain amount of money. If all of a sudden the government said, hey, you're going to have to pay a tax, and the only asset that you have that's really liquid right now is your phone. So imagine, instead of taking away people's yachts, they took away people's phones.
Right.
Now, how are they going to buy another phone? It's very difficult. So they have to go in and sell more stock. So when a person who is a stockholder in a business, a major stockholder, wants to sell stock, he has to file a form.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you file that form, it alerts everybody in the world that you're selling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people see that, okay, this person's selling the stock, so everybody sells also. So
there are shades of gray, I'm sure.
I'm saying that the
this.
smart investors, that's what they do. That's the system. Okay. When I see a CEO is selling stock, I sell it fast before he does.
I mean, it depends also on what the situation surrounding the CEO selling their stock.
Exactly. If he's selling the stock because he wants to buy a house, then I probably don't do anything.
Right. If he's selling his stock to pay for his wealth tax, it's not the same thing as selling it off because earnings are coming up in a couple of weeks. The word on the street is this fucker's going to tank.
If he's selling it for a wealth tax, then I'm definitely out. I got to get out. I got to get out because it's a wealth tax and it's coming every single year. So that tells me over time. No. Well, that's the word. If he's buying a house, I'm not going to worry so much. I'm like, all right, he's buying a house. He's going to pay a wealth tax. That means you got to get out because it's not just happening one year. It's happening every single year.
Yeah.
Now,
like I said, if it's 1 or 2 days
so wait a minute.
of a positive stock market price, 40 million can be just on paper. It can be recouped in a day.
No, but it isn't going to because it's capitulation. It's everybody following suit. The instant,
Enrique, we have to get back to something here. See, when somebody
We can't get
has
back to
$1
something when we haven't even.
dollars.
Wait, we didn't mention anything about anybody with $1 billion.
All
First
right,
of
when
all.
somebody has $1 billion in assets,
Yeah, net worth.
it's net worth.
Yeah.
There's so much net worth there. They're never going to be able to spend that kind of money
No.
over a period of a.
No, they'll probably never even sell the stock.
Right.
Yeah. It's just stock price. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's just the price of a stock.
So this eventually it has to be compared to the average American citizen.
No, because these are not average people. You can't compare these not average people to average people because, well, I mean, you can, but there's no disputing that someone with $1 billion has a lot more money than somebody with $4,000. I don't think that that's an argument here. What I'm trying to figure out and explain to you is if people have to sell their stock every year, 4% of their stock, that means in 8 years, all right, how much stock is gone? It's called a liquidity. It's a liquidity problem. So after 10 years of selling stock, it's not just a 40% reduction. It's a lot worse than that because it's capitulation. Everybody knows that the price of the stock is going to constantly go down. And so why is anybody going to stay in it? I assure you that the instant a wealth tax were to be imposed, everybody gets out of the stock market very, very fast. We'll have a 2008 crisis immediately just on an announcement like that. So then everybody starts selling their stock.
Well,
the stock market. Let me finish. Let me finish. Stock market starts to capitulate and fall. And then what happens? The banking industry then starts to capitulate because all their debt's all screwed up. And then the housing market starts to capitulate. It's just, it's an untenable thing. If you want to change the income tax, that's not a problem because people can just lower their income. It doesn't really matter that much. It's the raising of the income tax. The greatest losers are the people who are affected most adversely are going to be the middle class. Those are the people that get to hit the hardest with high numbers. That's why back in the 50s and 60s, when we had these high taxes, it was big problems at the time. And, I don't know if we can get into all of that because I'd have to pull up some things.
Big problems. We had the greatest economy in the history of the country.
No, actually,
we have the worst economy.
Before the pandemic, in 2019, we had the best economy in the history of the country. There's no debating that.
That's not true. Again, there's a divide. There's when we talk about a great economy, it's the same thing that all these freaking Democratic, candidates ran on. They would ask, "It's a great economy for who?"
Right.
For the 600 billionaires, yeah.
No, I think that's what they said. From 2013, from 2013 to 2019, we had an incredibly strong economy.
For who?
For everybody.
Everybody.
In the United States. Yeah. Oh, well, you can't always have everybody. There were people starving to death in the 50s also. We had riots in the 50s. We had race riots. We had gangs. We had the 50s. The 50s were a very tumultuous time in America.
Yeah, but for different reasons. That was a period of time where somebody could.
The economic hardship in the 50s was very significant, significantly greater than anything that we saw between 2012 and 2019.
That's not true.
Yeah, it is. The entire.
No, it's not.
All right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to quote something here. So
I just want to say one thing. If you're talking to a millennial right now who's been fucked every which way but Sunday by this economy, student debt, not able to take part in this magnificent stock market that you're talking about, not able to buy a house because they can't afford it, They got hit with the crisis in 2008. We spoke about this.
All right,
Now they're hit with the
so wait
coronavirus.
right. No, I
They're-
understand, but
they,
yeah,
they feel completely left out by the economy. Okay. Now, someone in the 50s and 60s, let's say their father, this millennial's father, was able to buy a house on maybe even a single income. They were able to take part in the American dream.
no,
They were
actually, but these are just not true statements. The 1950s were extremely difficult economically
could you buy a house on a single wage?
it was. First of all, in the 1950s, only 2% of Americans went to college. Okay, the entire country, and today, the highest amount of kids are going to college than in the history of America. So in the
Okay, what does that do with what I
1950s,
was saying?
in the 1950s, only 2.5% of Americans went to college. During the 1950s, we had tremendous inflation. We had all, prices of everything were rising. The U.S. dollar was losing value at a remarkable rate, and a recession was in place. So the entire decade of the 1950s, well, certainly the first half of the 1950s.
Yeah, not the second half.
Right. And then the second half of the 1950s, things, definitely got better than the first half. But look at what
was the economy strong in the late 50s?
Not as strong as it was like in the last 5-6 years.
Then let me ask you this. What does common sense tell you? With people depressed, suicidal, addicted to opioids, obese, very disgruntled, they feel like they can't make a living wage, they can't pay for their housing.
That was happening in the 1950s
to go out to eat.
Well.
Yeah, but is a much different. I think. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but there's a rising level of anger and frustration in people's lives nowadays. How would you speak to that? Do you believe that that's true? Or
there's a lot of anger in the 1950s. I can tell you that. And
you weren't. When were you born, dude?
I wasn't born then, but I had parents. I had people that told me that,
okay.
And I've also read history. So neither you or I were alive in the 1950s. Now I have to go and plug this freaking thing in. Shit.
All right. Anyway, I got to end this thing anyway.
Wait, 1 second. 1 second.
I'll tell you one thing about the 50s. There was a tax rate of something close to 90% on the top earners. And you know what? It didn't tank this country. It didn't tank the stock market. It didn't close down jobs.
Because I keep on having to go. I started this thing 15 minutes earlier than I had expected. And those 15 minutes were 15 minutes that I really needed to get this thing going. So it says here, we had this part, televisions were coming online. There was a lot of new activity. There was new industry, new technology. And so there were some things that were, doing reasonably well in the second part of the 50s. And in the 60s, we had other problems.
Would you say that during the Eisenhower era, the Americans had a level of prosperity that they'd never had before?
Wait, say it again?
During the Eisenhower era, is it fair to say that Americans had a level of prosperity that they'd never known before?
No.
Okay.
So here.
That's exactly true. The economy overall grew by 37% during the 1950s.
Yeah, that was after a long.
37%.
I understand, but
inflation was minimal. Unemployment was about 4%. I don't know what you're talking about, dude.
Right. Well, in last year, unemployment was down to 3%.
Yeah, exactly the wrong time to give tax cuts, right?
Well, in part, it was because of the tax cuts. Listen, we keep. This is what happens when we try to have a conversation. The topic here is how would a billionaire pay the $40 million a year, the 4%, and basically he'd be eroding the value. So what we're trying, during the Eisenhower administration, I want you to know there was no wealth tax.
Oh, I know, but the top tax rate was 90%.
I understand. And so you can change the taxes. I mean, some president's going to change the tax structure and
So,
then
so let me ask you,
we're not talking about income tax. We're talking about wealth tax.
So what is the actual difference to you?
What do you mean the actual difference is one is taxing you on your annual income and the other one is taxing you on your assets, which often don't pay you anything at all. And they don't do anything for you.
So you'd be fine with a 90% income tax rate.
Oh, definitely not. No, that would be horrible. But
okay,
but we're not talking.
Both bad.
What?
So they're both bad.
Well, I think a 90% income tax, of course, that's insanity.
Why? That was, like I said, the economy was humming.
But everybody got around it. People didn't pay the 90%. Everybody got around it. That's what the big freaking push towards all kinds of ways to shelter your money. That's when all the law firms started coming up doing the tax shelters. So people didn't really pay 90% of their income. They just had that. Now, Sweden, by the way, used to have a high income tax rate and they changed it.
So people cheated on their taxes.
Of course, just like they always do.
Okay.
Right. It's not that they cheated. They found all the loopholes
Right.
and everything else. That's what they did. And then what they did is they padded their corporate accounts and they got personal assets there.
So in other words, the wealth tax, you can't get around that, or can you?
No, the wealth tax, the wealth tax, I don't know what you can do with the wealth tax. The wealth tax is basically just going to kill jobs and kill the economy. We're talking about.
But you can't get around it, right?
Of course you can. You could just take all your money and you can invest it in other countries instead. That's all. Of course you can do that.
Because it was funny. You were sounding like you were saying, "Oh, we could get around the income tax, but we can't get around the wealth taxes."
No, the first thing, of course you can get around
Of
course you can get around the wealth tax. You just build your company in another country every time. So all you got to do is, in order to get around the wealth tax, say, okay, there's a wealth tax, so we're going to start a company and we're going to get our funding and we're going to make sure that we start it in a different country. We're not going to start companies in the United States because of the wealth tax.
Yeah, but
okay.
I mean, I don't know. Is that going to work? That sounds very complicated, and
it sounds complicated, but it isn't. It's
okay.
There's nothing.
So you're going to start a company in a different country, and all your money is going to go there.
Yeah, of course. You're gonna move your citizenship. You're gonna do whatever you got to do to not destroy.
Yeah, that is complicated. I'm sorry, but I hear about people moving to Spain all the time, and just moving your citizenship to another country is a fucking nightmare. So in some countries,
I don't know that you necessarily need to move your citizenship. This is an area that I'm not knowledgeable in it. How to go and move to another country. I was born in the United States. I'm American.
That's what I'm saying.
If there was a wealth tax that affected me, okay, then of course I would have to figure out a way to manage that. I'm obviously not going to stay in this country and keep my assets here if they're going to take 4% of everything away from me every year.
Why do you think people support it then? What makes the average, even Republican, say, I like this?
When you say even Republicans, I don't know what that means.
Because Republican is a party of the rich.
I'm not aware of that, so I can't speak to that.
Oh, you're not?
No, that's just not something that I'm aware of.
Huh.
But we're trying to figure out.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. I'm not really that politically inclined, so I understand something about businesses and something about economics, but I'm not a political, expert at all.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I think
that's expert level stuff, right?
I mean, it's out of my wheelhouse. I'm not in that area. What I can tell you is that if people, and I want you to try to just focus on this and
okay,
give
I'm
me
going to try
an
to
answer.
listen.
If you have to sell 4% of your stock every year,
yeah,
you're going to have to sell it for cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So it's going to be very difficult to find buyers.
Maybe not, though. We said sometimes the stock price has nothing to do with this, right?
It never has nothing to do with it. Ever. It always has something to do with it. And it also always has a lot to do with it. There's not
So you're telling me Amazon stock price would not be going up as dramatically as it has been the last 20 years if there had been a wealth tax?
Absolutely. And you know what, France?
That's ridiculous, dude.
Of course it wouldn't go up. There's no way it could go up. So let me explain this. France had a wealth tax. So why don't you explain? Just a minute. France had a wealth tax for a while. And they repealed it. Why do you think they took it away?
I have no idea.
Because of the destructive economic effects that it had. Everybody, 60% of the population said, yes, wealth tax. And they also said that we want to retire at 52, and then we want to retire with full pensions. They made all of these demands. And then when I heard that, I said, this is nuts.
Well, hold on.
Hold on a minute. Hold on a second. So
you can't just blurt out something about the French political system and the economies. That's something that we have to study, and you have to give me time to look at, because you're talking about a lot of different factors. It's not just the wealth tax. France has gone through, like you said, they've got.
Well, France is going through horrible things because they keep on they keep on listening to the voices of the people telling them to do these crazy things. And then they do them just to show them how it's going to be a disaster. And then it's a disaster. And then they say, okay, just like any CEO has to tell one of their employees or a group of their employees, okay, you're wrong about this, but you're insisting on this. So we're going to try it. And this way you'll learn from actual experience instead of just learning from the guy who knows, because that's what they do. So then you go and you test something out. You lose a bunch of money. People don't get a bunch of paychecks, and you say, okay, do you still like your idea? And they say, no. Okay, we realize it was wrong. In America,
a funny story about France, a real story, because you're bringing it up about France, right?
Well, the only thing I said was France had a wealth tax and they repealed
and
it.
They stopped it.
And now things are going a lot better. Sweden.
Wait, can I speak to that for a second? Because I got a real story. I got a real story about France. I had a nephew that just moved here from France, right? He lived in France his entire life. He's 35 years old, whatever, 36. Yeah. He came to New York. He stayed in New York for 2 years. He went back to France. He said, I can't hack it here.
Yeah.
I'd rather live in France.
Sure.
Because it's too hard.
Yeah.
You need too much money here to survive.
True.
You need more money in New York than you need in Paris.
Sure. I don't disagree with that. That's absolutely potentially true. It's extremely hard. And you gotta work your ass off, and it's
more opportunity there.
No, that's not. That's
what he said.
All right, but that's one guy says that. I haven't lived in France, so I can't compare, and I can't say that. All I can tell you is that also Sweden tried this democratic socialism.
There we go.
For I think it was about 15 years. And then what happened about 10 years ago? They got rid of it and they went to full capitalism. Sweden was struggling tremendously during that time. Then they turned into a capitalist country. They lowered the income tax rate. And now that country for the last 10 years is thriving.
You know, talking about lowering income tax rates.
It's not like thriving like the United States, but
I want to ask you a challenge. I want to issue, maybe this is off topic. I want to issue a challenge. Yeah. We talk about, because this has a lot to do with trickle-down economics, or not trickle-down, let's say supply-side economics. And I know you're a proponent of it. And
I didn't say
I know you said it's never not worked. That's your exact quote.
What I said was
it's never not worked. Exactly.
It seems to
I wrote
work
it down.
For the most part.
Yeah.
But
would you say that publicly on your Facebook page?
That trickle-down economics has worked. I mean,
yeah. Would you say that?
I wouldn't say it works all the time. I think you have to take everything on a case-by-case basis.
What do you think the response would be from your Facebook friends if you wrote that, just simply that on your Facebook page?
That trickle-down economics does sometimes work?
Well, no. What you said to me, the exact quote was, "It's never not worked."
I don't know that I said that. I might have said I'm not
Yeah, you did.
aware of when it hasn't worked. I'm not sure. But
Does
I
it
can't,
sound like something you could have said?
I think something that I could have said was that I'm not aware of when it hasn't worked. But we're not talking about trickle down
But
economics here.
in a way, we are, though, aren't we?
Actually, what we're talking about,
Supply side economics.
no, that's not what we're talking. Let me tell you what we're talking about, because
Okay.
you might not know. What we're talking about is where
I
a
don't know.
billionaire is going to get $40 million a year, and how selling his stock every year in order to pay such a bill is going to fare. So after 10 years, that's a 40% of his company gone.
That's not
Okay.
true. Not true
It
at
is.
all.
And then not only that, but when a CEO is selling
You're
his
making up some sort of like hypothetical la la la, and now I'm
40,
making it up so
well,
that this
40,
now his company's tanked because
well, of course, there's no
everybody's
way a
sold
company
off.
could survive something like that.
And you said yourself that Amazon stock would not have had the miraculous rise that it would have had if wealth tax existed.
I don't even know if they would have been able to get funded in the first place if the wealth tax would have started before they tried to get funding. See, what
Really?
happens is exactly what you just said before is exactly what would happen. What would happen is the government would start seizing everyone's assets, and then they would go
Everyone.
all of the wealthy.
All right.
Okay.
The 600 or the 1,000. Oh no.
Well,
Okay. So
it's more.
it's about 12,000 families. I think they said
Yeah,
12,000.
whatever
families.
it is. 12,000 feds. They'd seize their assets.
You know how many families there are in America?
Ben, it doesn't matter if there's
25 million. I'm just putting it out there.
I understand it. That's got nothing to do with it. The thing is that
So we're
those
talking about 12,000 families. I'm just want to be clear.
25 million people rely on those 12,000 families for jobs.
Yeah, but again, we're not talking about that. See, you're talking about supply side economics here.
What I'm talking about is people build a business, and in the case of Amazon, they have 750,000 employees.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
I'm talking about they've hired these people. So what you just said in your example, which is we only have like 4 minutes worth of value in this hour-long interview.
All right, fine. I don't care. You know, you look. What you want to do is control the dialogue, but
No.
I am not allowing it this time. You know why? You know why?
Why?
Because I have public opinion on my side.
Determination. You have public opinion on your side.
Oh yeah, public
All right, so
opinion agrees with the wealth tax.
All right, well,
74% of Democrats and 53 or 54% of Republicans agree.
okay, but where are they going to get the money to pay for it?
But we're talking about hypotheticals, and
we're not talking about hypotheticals. We're not talking about hypotheticals.
Okay,
we
so
already know
there's
12,000 families. There's 12,000 families.
Right, that are wealthy.
That are wealthy. Where are they going to get the money to pay this wealth tax?
They're going to sell their stocks.
Exactly. So so all I'm saying is they sell their stock.
Right.
And then people start becoming unemployed.
Maybe.
Absolutely. It would be absolutely impossible. Look at what they did in France. They already did that in France. And everybody got unemployed real fast. Real fast. They already did this whole thing in Sweden where they had high income tax. But we're not talking about high income tax. But still, I'll bring it up right now. Sweden tried the high income tax. Their economy went into disaster. Then they got out of it. They had this democratic socialism thing for 15 years. Wait a minute. And then 10 years ago, they got completely rid of it. And they went to a full out capitalist system, and that's when their economy started to thrive, and that's when everything started to go well.
You are using examples that can be rebutted by other examples. I'm not going to get into it. I'm sure you heard about Brownback in Kansas, how he used Reaganomics and that whole trickle down thing, and he said, "I'm going to get rid of taxes completely in Kansas," and the economy completely collapsed because he thought the businesses would start, hiring people and pumping all the money into the economy, and it turned out to be the exact opposite. So there's examples on both sides. No, I don't know anything about France's wealth tax.
No, I understand, but you
know about Brownback's Kansas?
Yeah, I'm aware of it. But he was also there's already states in the United States. There's Florida, Texas, Nevada, New Hampshire, I think Louisiana. and there's maybe one or two more that don't have any state tax. So what they
Yeah.
do there is you got to pay higher property tax. So that presents other types of challenges. But I think that does make some, a good amount of sense, because the property taxes are generally commensurate with how much money you have to spend on a house. So of course that does seem to work. But you already have states that have done this and zeroed out the taxes, and they're doing very well. Where does everybody flocks to these states that have no income tax? Because they have no income tax.
Well,
So
no, this is not just income tax though. With the Brownback experiment was,
no, I understand what the
it
Brownback
was a
experiment
corporate.
is, but I don't support that. What I
Yeah.
support is not having a wealth tax and not having 90% income tax, because what happens is when you have a wealth tax, then the government, first of all, how's the government's going to take that cash from you because you're liquidating your assets. They're going to take your boat, so nobody's going to buy boats anymore, obviously. All right. They're going to take your home, so
Right.
nobody's going to buy a home. I'm obviously not going to buy a boat for $50 million if I know the government's going to take it away from me. Right.
Dude,
That
you're
would be
talking
crazy.
about 600 people in the country.
It
600
doesn't matter
people.
how many of those people there
But you're
are.
talking about like boats, as if there's going to be a sell-off of yachts that's going to render this economy
No,
inert. I mean,
what I'm
it's
saying is
crazy.
these 600 people also employ millions and millions of people.
Yes, yes, I
Right.
understand.
So as
But
soon
those
as
people don't have boats.
no, but the people that employ those people have boats.
Right. The 600 people.
Exactly. And so
So
as
there's
soon
not
as
going to be a massive sell-off of boats.
no, you're going to have a decrease in the assets that people buy. Okay. How is somebody going to pay for an $85 million apartment in New York City? Okay. They're not going to be able to if there's a wealth tax. So then that's property values going down. That guy with his $86 million apartment in New York is paying millions and millions of dollars a year to New York City in taxes for roads and lights and signs and all that stuff, and the police and the fire. That's where all those taxes go. The higher the property values, then the more tax you pay. Conspicuous consumption, that moves the economy forward. When you start imposing a wealth tax, first of all, the very first thing that's going
So
to
greed
happen
is
is
good.
no, greed is not good. Never.
Conspicuous consumption
Conspicuous consumption
is
is good
good.
because you're spending money, and then that's what's giving people jobs. That's what people are doing. Give me an example of where
You know,
somebody,
it's funny. Like I just find this whole thing backwards. It's like, why not put the money into the hands of the people?
because it
Forget
doesn't
about it.
belong to them. Because it doesn't
Yeah,
belong
yes,
to
it
them.
does.
No, it
It's just like,
doesn't.
okay, imagine it this way,
It's
Enrique.
called theft.
I'm on an
Ben,
island
what
with
you're
10 people.
yeah.
Let me use an example. I got 10 people on an island, right? One
Mhm.
guy is really industrious and works really hard and starts making something that can be sold to other islands. He makes a fortune.
Right.
10 people live on this island.
Yeah.
One woman is raising a child, right? She
Yeah.
can't work. She can't be busting her ass making this new invention.
Yeah.
So one guy gets obscenely wealthy on the
Yeah.
island,
Right.
and the other people are kind of like, well, I get something sometimes, but I don't really have much. And one person on the island is fucking dead broke,
Mm-hmm.
completely poor and impoverished.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you want that one guy who's selling $1 billion worth of fucking shoes to another island to help that single mother and say, you know what? I'm making so much money here with this business. Let me give some money to this.
Doesn't that single mother work for the guy who's making billions of
No,
dollars
she's
for the
raising a
shoes?
child.
Oh, so she's not working at all,
Maybe not. I don't
and,
know.
and she's
She
broke.
if you have a little island of 10 people, right? And one guy's doing really well, another one's doing, wouldn't you give some money to the person that's not doing well? And
Well,
isn't
that's
that
what
kind of a microcosm of our society?
definitely.
That's why people are pissed off about Bezos being the first trillionaire when there's 40 million people unemployed. It just doesn't seem right.
Yeah,
It
but the
seems
thing
like
is
a
that
symbol of the inequality. That's what I'm talking about.
I know, but I'm trying to get into information. So the billionaires, not only did they create millions of jobs, so then this woman who has a child can can have a job. Okay, I mean, first of all, I don't think it's a good idea for a single mother to have a child when they have no.
On an island, yeah, it's a stupid idea.
I mean, it's not a good idea.
It's
But
just a metaphor.
I understand. But the thing is that something that billionaires do is I mean, people like Bloomberg, he just paid off some country's debt. Bill Gates is going and running around and making vaccines for everybody. You got
Yeah,
people
it's
like,
such a great idea. I love the idea. Maybe let's make a law about it. Oh,
no,
yeah, it's
no,
called
laws,
taxation.
no, it shouldn't be a law because that's when it becomes nefarious. What you got to do is people who have money,
Oh, because
they
government
all,
bad?
no, it's not that government's bad. What it is that you want people to do things because of they want to. So people like, let's say, Warren Buffett, he's already given away something like $40 billion to all kinds of
Yeah,
causes and
Warren
all
Buffett
kinds
has
of
been
situations.
has been the most, probably him and Bill Gates have been the most charitable.
Well,
But
there's loads of them. I mean, Richard Branson, every single billionaire people like Bloomberg. Bloomberg is
just
probably
until
number.
recently, though.
No, the
Like,
last 15 years, 20 years, Bloomberg has been extremely generous and has given, I think he's the guy that actually $40 billion he's given away. And he's also pledged the giving pledge, which means that he gives all of his money away during his lifetime.
yeah, I like
So
that.
these guys are doing all these things, and I think that they're incredibly remarkable people. So I just wouldn't want to have laws that did that, because as soon as it becomes a law, then that's when everybody goes
Then
into
you have to
fear
really
mode.
follow up on it.
No, it's not that you have to follow up on it. That's when it becomes nefarious. That's when it
Why?
becomes,
Why nefarious? What's nefarious about making people pay their taxes when they don't? They
well,
clearly don't. They clearly hide their money in offshore accounts and use, anything that they can.
that's
I'm looking at
speculation.
pages of.
No, but that's speculation. You're generalizing. It's kind of like it's kind of like saying, like being not in 1930s Germany and saying it's the Jews. Let's kill all the Jews. And
What?
because they have all the money. That's the same thing as what you're talking about. You're talking about, let's get the billionaires and let's lynch
What are
them.
you fucking talking
Let's
about?
put them
Are
in
you
the
sick?
gas chambers. Well,
Dude,
that's what this is.
billionaires. The
That's the
thing I
message.
wrote on your Facebook page was simple. You said, "What's so wrong about billionaire? Why are you attacking us?"
Yeah.
And or them. And I said, "It's because you control the laws. You use your money and your power to make it even more
I,
easy for you to
so
make
what?
more and more money, and
So,
therefore tilt the playing field even more and more, so that the
so
poor people in this country are left with the short end of the
But why
stick."
don't so let me ask you this, and it's going to sound like a funny question, but I'm asking it for a reason. Why don't you become a billionaire, and then you can show everybody how it's done?
I'll try.
No, but I'm serious. But why wouldn't you do that? The answer is because it's
I'm,
not
I,
easy
I'm
to do. The answer is
I'm
because you
way
wouldn't.
too lazy. I'm a musician. I spend time doing other shit. I don't.
Exactly.
I
Exactly. No, exactly. That's right. You're way too lazy.
way too
And
lazy. I don't
and
want to be a
therefore,
billionaire. I don't.
exactly. But the
Yeah.
people who are billionaires, they're sacrificing
No.
their
It's not
time to sit
sacrifice,
around. It's Well, if it wasn't sacrifice, then why don't you do it?
because okay, I disagree with the word sacrifice. I think a lot of these people are psychopaths and sociopaths, and there is a relationship between the top
You don't think it's a
CEOs
little
and
bit
sociopaths.
sociopathic to suggest that the government take away people's stuff?
No,
Start
we
taking
need the
away people's.
government. As a matter of fact, if anything, this pandemic has shown you good government is so fucking important. We need it. We need to change the playing field. We need to even things out. We need to find out who's in jail illegally. We need
So
to find out.
Here's a question for you. Do you think that people should be paid based on their ability, or people should be paid based on their need?
I think that's a great question. I think people should be paid a living wage. I know that sounds like a cop out, like I'm not
It's a cop out
following
because
A or
you're not
B.
answering the question.
I know, but what
But
I think to,
why not just answer the question?
for me, it's hard to answer a question without thinking about what does it take to
Do
live?
you think that the mother
What does it
would,
take to live?
right?
It takes a house. I
Do you
have to
think that
eat.
do you think that a mother with 3 children who may not have any husband, all right, living somewhere, should be given money because she needs it, not not because she is contributing or she's got particular skill sets?
Well, I, I I think it should be a combination of the two to some extent. And let me ask you this. What do you think of um, what is it called? The universal, what the hell is it called?
Income.
Yeah. What do you think of universal income? Because I think a woman like that would
Well, let me
definitely
answer the
benefit.
question. All right. So you asked me a question. Universal basic income.
Ask me a question,
Um,
please.
so what I think is that we're heading into a time, a paradigm where people are not going to be needed all that much to do things. Manufacturing is going to be shifting from Asia to the United States over the next 10 years in fairly dramatic fashion. So as manufacturing comes to the United States is going to be able to produce goods for less money than Asia was able to, even despite the fact that they were paying people, 75 cents an hour. And the way that the United States is going to be able to do this is, instead of hiring 10,000 people to produce a certain amount of widgets, they're going to have those same amount of widgets built with, let's say, 400 people. And the way that they're going to be able to do that is through efficiencies, automation, artificial intelligence, robotics, and so on and so forth. So we're not going to need people to do very much. I mean, there are already restaurants that you go into and then you order something on a thing. I mean, all over Japan, just go into a restaurant, you push a couple buttons and the food comes out.
Right. Keep going.
This is,
Water.
well, I'm not going to keep
Keep going. I'm
going.
listening.
I'm going to get a glass of water too. All right, where are you? So
Right. Yeah. Go on.
as we progress into this age where people are not going to be needed to be very involved, despite the fact that manufacturing jobs are going to be coming here, we're going to need, it'll be a short-term boom. All right. But again, we still have to compete with Asian prices, because as we talked about before, those jeans you're wearing, you didn't buy American made jeans for $750. You bought Chinese jeans, and those Chinese jeans that you paid $40 for were made by somebody having incredible suffering and incredible pain and agony in their day.
By the way, you're absolutely right, and I commend you for bringing that up. And it's changed me personally in my thinking. I really laud you for that, because you're using your dollar as your political voice, and
Yeah,
that's
dollar is your vote. That's your
the
vote. That's
dollar's
your
your vote.
powerful vote. It doesn't really matter
Very
what you do
important.
when you go to the voting booth and what president you vote for. I don't really give a shit. What really matters is, how do you spend your money? And are you thinking about how those people, when the iPhone first came out, I remember I converted to Apple computers, and I was very mindful. For a long time, they said Microsoft is the devil, and Apple did an incredibly good job marketing that idea. Of course, all that time I felt that Apple was the devil and Microsoft was the good guy. And for every single ounce of that energy, Apple would spend $1 million to turn that idea around and make people believe the opposite of what reality was. So one of the things I remember doing, I got this iPhone and then I bought an Apple computer or I bought 20 Apple computers actually for the office, and I started to change, and it was kind of expensive. But what I said to myself, I think it was around 2005, I said, in 2005, I said, all right, I'm going to convert to Apple, so I'm not going to replace any of these Microsoft computers. And then I think it was 2008 that I actually said, okay, I need new computers and I'm going with Apple. They're more expensive, but I think that they look nicer and they're going to give a more extraordinary experience to the people working at them because they're just like cooler computers.
Right.
But before that, I didn't even like the way they looked, so I wasn't going to get involved. It was the design that got me kind of going. But I remember when I bought the first iPhone, I wrote a long letter to Steve Jobs, and I said, what's going on in China is an abomination. And you need to tell these people a standard by which they need to work. And about a month or so later, I got a response, and it basically said, we agree, and this is something that we're going to be working on. And then about a year after that, there was an article in the New York Times about Apple Computer going in and requesting that people are paid better and that the working environments are better. I don't know how true that reality is because I'm never able to follow up on that. I think it's Foxconn that made all the Apple shit. But they were, these things matter. And one of the reasons why I'm still on an iPhone 6, this is an iPhone 6, is because of my discomfort giving money to something that throughout the entire supply chain, I find something offensive. You know, I don't buy very many things from Amazon, but I do respect their business because I think that if I analyze every step of the supply chain, how they're doing things on this end, I respect it. I like what they're doing and I like how they treat their employees. The problem is that most of the things they sell are cheap Chinese goods. So they also sell other things, but primarily their products are not the kinds of products that I necessarily want to go and purchase. But every now and then I do buy something from Amazon. Again, I don't respect the sources by which those products come from, but I do respect the company. I respect their mission, and I respect their global attitude and how they're all over the place. I mean, if you're in China and you want to buy Chinese made goods, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
You know, and I'm not suggesting that if you're American, buy American. I'm saying if you're an American, you are incredibly privileged. You are in the top. You are in the top 1% of humans just by virtue of being in the United States. So it's a shame when you don't make those right decisions. And I'm not saying buy American, but buy from a place where the supply chain treated its people fairly and reasonably and with dignity. So yeah, you can buy things made in Italy. You can buy things. I mean, France doesn't make anything. It's a shame. You've got all these French designers, and you know where all the French designers make all their stuff? Except for maybe like the super high-end couture. It's all made in Italy. I mean, the good stuff. Right. You know, Lanvin, you buy like Lanvin sneakers. Those are made in Italy. They're not made in France. France doesn't make anything because it seems to me, and I'm not the only person that sees it this way, they are a country that really exists a lot on entitlements, and they're not pushing their people forward, and they're looking for they're too good to do anything. So they don't even make clothing or handbags or anything. They ship them off to the Italians, which work for lower wages, and they see the Italians as less than. But at least it's Italy, and the Italian people are incredibly good craftsmen, so they're going to make a really nice thing.
Well, do you want to play us out? I probably should go. It's been a pleasure talking to you about this hypothetical billionaire that we never.
It's basically
it's impossible to talk about.
No, it's very difficult because I think that I really wanted to get into this conversation and concentrate on one thing and one thing only. Where is not even a hypothetical billionaire. Where is any billionaire going to get $40 million a year
But
to give to the government?
okay. You have to understand it's the difficulty in telling you exactly what that billionaire is going to either sell or cash out of, or
It's only stock because that's where they have all their money.
it's stock. It's stock. And
Yeah.
and if you're telling me that you think a company like Amazon is not going to have the run, or a Netflix or a FedEx is really going to be tanked because their CEO has to sell,
It's not just their CEO, it's every billionaire at that company.
well, every one of the 600 people in the world have to sell this, this
No, I think
stock
there's
is
more
going to
than
tank the
600
whole
people.
economy.
Let
It's
me,
crazy to me.
well,
I just don't understand it.
all right, so I'm just gonna look up how
You
many.
want to just play us out?
No,
'Cause
wait, how many billionaires are there
in the United
in
States,
the United States?
around 600, they say. I've already done this.
Yeah, 621, but that's just in the United States. There's other.
Right, in the United States. We're
Right,
talking
right.
about United States.
Yeah. So yeah.
So you finally Googled something I say and you believe me, huh?
No, I understand. I'm just checking
You
on the.
some.
No, I haven't once in this entire conversation said that there are more than 600 billionaires. I just said, let me just look at this thing up,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah,
we get an
no,
actual
I
firm
know.
number.
I
So
know.
621 is the number, which is,
Okay.
25%, 21 billionaires on the way to 700. But that's 20 years ago, I think there were like 4.
Yeah, right.
So there seems to be, it seems to be growing. This wealth tax is not only on billionaires, it's on people with $32 million. So what I was hoping to do in this conversation was then go and look at somebody who, might have a house in the Hamptons, $20 million worth of stock, and then apartment in New York, and, $35 million net worth, which now when we look up how many people have a $35 million net worth, that number is going to be quite tremendous. All right. And at that point, now you're talking about people who are working to pay their bills, send their kids to school. And it really becomes a different story when you're talking about people with, $50 million net worths and have them having to sell their assets, because you can get from $50 million to zero pretty fast.
Right.
So
right.
bottom line is, people are taking tax cuts and then they're buying their own stock. I understand that. I've watched a lot of videos complaining about that. I've watched the counter argument to that. Stocks going up create greater liquidity.
Instead of reinvesting, right?
Well, they are reinvesting. That's what reinvesting is. By the way.
No, but they said they would reinvest in things that would help the general economy. This helps their shareholders only.
Well, it doesn't just help their shareholders. What reinvesting in your own stock does, it also firms up the price and creates more liquidity. So you can give more people jobs, and then you can go and expand your business, and you can do mergers and acquisitions and all kinds of shit like that.
Yeah.
Everything, this entire conversation is supposed to be all about the consequences that France already realized, that Sweden already repealed, that other countries that have tried.
I can't talk about that until I know more about all the factors involved. That's a very complex thing you're talking about.
All right, well, we can just stay with the United States. There's already been countries that's tried that and that already said that shit didn't work. So we're not doing that anymore. So go and do the research. I was hoping that you were going to already be prepared with that, because that's the only question.
No, I'm not going to be prepared to argue whether France was right in enacting a wealth tax or repealing it or any of that crap.
The idea was we're supposed to spend 1 hour talking about the wealth tax. So that would say which other countries tried to do that.
Okay. All right. Anyway, it's been real.
At the end of the day, listen, at the end of the day, you can't, you just, here, I'll take us out.
Tears of...
No. Just hang on. Saw her today at the reception, a glass of wine in her hand. She was gonna meet her connection. Yeah, she was a footloose man. I don't remember the one. You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want. Can't always get what you want. If you try sometime, well, you just might find you get what you need.
Beautiful.
At her foot, no, at her feet was a footloose man.
What? Is that the
At
lyric?
her feet was her footloose man, right? Yeah, that's what it is.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure.
Reception, a glass of wine in her hand, and she's gonna meet her connection. At her feet was a footloose man. You can't always get what you want. Anyway, did you like that?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we couldn't get the wealth tax, so we can't always get what we want, right?
Yeah, look, the income tax, you want to move that shit around. I don't think it would hurt to raise the income tax. I'm not against that. You know, I think that you could raise the capital gains tax, but you know that means the amount of tax.
Yeah, right, 20%, because that was a big part of this conversation, was that the
Yeah.
very rich do not pay taxes like us. You know, they really do not.
They pay the same amount of taxes as everybody else when they sell stock. That's uniform across the board.
Maybe what I'm saying is people work for a paycheck. Most people work for a paycheck.
I understand, but we're talking about an activity. If you go, whether you're a billionaire, a millionaire, or you got $20 in the bank, you're still paying the same amount of money to get into Yankee Stadium. Yeah, unless you buy a special seat, and then you're paying more money. The point is that these taxes, I mean, these capital gains is an incentivizer, and there have been, just look at what happens during the Jimmy Carter administration when the capital gains tax was higher. Look at all the administrations that raised the capital gains tax and see how the stock market performed, and also see how it resulted in the unemployment numbers, because there is a direct correlation between stock market performance, which means liquidity, and the unemployment numbers. So this is a direct correlation. So I have no problem with moving those numbers around. I think that there are consequences, and I think that there are implications for the capital gains tax, but move them around. I've seen them as high as like 30%, even 35% at some times. People are still going to invest in the stock market, you know, and they can do that.
Sometimes there is sometimes they can pay as little as zero capital gains. Have you ever heard of that?
No. The only way that you can pay zero is if you took a loss. Let's say you have a $10 million loss, capital gains loss, and then you have a $10 million capital gain in that same year, then you end up neutralizing it, and that's it. But the interesting thing that goes really in the favor of you and what you're talking about is,
I like this. Yeah, talk to me.
Is that when you do have capital gains losses, you can only offset them $3,500 a year. I think now they changed it to maybe it's $5,000 now. But you can, if you lose $20 million, you can only offset your taxes by like $5,000 a year.
Oh,
so
really?
that is how that works
Right.
at this time, and I'm sure that's making you happy.
That make me very happy. Well, it's been a pleasure, man.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. Like, I'm glad you came on, and you know, I think that you know, we do struggle to stay on the rails. I know that you want to come on and make a point, and if I would let you just go and talk and not interject, then we would have never covered the question of that and realize that it's a complete disaster to have people have to liquidate their equity.
Enrique, last time I came on the show, I was ill.
Yeah.
And you spoke the whole time. And I'll never forget the phone call afterwards. You said, that was great. And I said to myself, I didn't say a fucking word.
No, you said
so now I wanted to say something.
A lot.
And
Did you go on to YouTube and watch the conversation? Why don't you watch these? I'm going to post this up right now.
Okay.
You should watch the other one, and you should watch this one.
All right.
You know, and see how it goes. Should I edit out the parts where I walked away and shit and all that?
No, who cares?
Actually,
I mean, what's up to you?
Why don't I turn this thing off? Yeah, but people, I got to turn the recording. I'm turning the recording. Stop recording.